This is Nightly Business Report with Tyler Matheson and Sue Herrera.
Spring awakening. There's new evidence the economy is improving, and that's one of the reasons why the most powerful woman in America's economy just gave a big hint on interest rates.
We have a deal. Verizon and its almost 40,000 striking workers have agreed in principle to end the biggest labor strike in years.
The doctor really said there's nothing. There's no medical treatments at this time.
But groundbreaking surgery gave one mother hope and her two children their sight. The third part of our Modern Medicine series tonight on Nightly Business Report for Friday, May 27th.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. If we learned anything this week, it's that the economy is getting stronger. Today, we got even more evidence. Economic growth at the start of the year wasn't really as bad as initially thought. According to the Commerce Department, the nation's gross domestic product increased 0.8%. Though still weak, corporate profits rose, and the decline in business inventory investment was less severe. Still, the needed proof that the economy is rebounding? Well, listen to what Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen said today.
It's appropriate, and I've said this in the past, I think, for the Fed to gradually and cautiously increase our overnight interest rate over time, and probably in the coming months, such a move would be appropriate.
She made no mention of overseas concerns, something that has kept the Fed on hold in the past. And with that, the chance of a June rate hike rose. The markets weren't bothered by it, however. The Dow Jones Industrial Average gained nearly 45 points to 17,873. The Nasdaq added 31. The S&P 500 was up almost 9. For the week, all of the major indexes gained 2% or more.
So, an excellent week for U.S. stocks. Can the rally continue? Let's ask Hank Smith, Chief Investment Officer at Haverford Trust. Hank, welcome. Good to have you with us. You know, Ms. Yellen said what she said today. The market's little perturbed by that or the prospect of higher interest rates. Looks like the economy's getting better. Is the stock market going to continue to get better?
Yeah, I think the market is getting used to the fact that we're going to get a rate hike this summer. We just don't know if it's going to be June or July. If it's obviously we have Brexit on the 23rd of June before the Fed meeting, so there's a good chance they might hold off. And in that case, July would be the month.
You know, Hank, a lot of people think that we might get a spike in volatility or some market unrest, if you will, depending on which way the Brexit vote goes. What do you think of that?
Well, look, I think clearly the market wants to see Great Britain stay in the EU. If it doesn't, possibly there's a sell-off. I think that would be a buying opportunity for sure, just as every sell-off so far in this 7-year-old bull market has been a wonderful buying opportunity. I don't think it would be any different if we sell off because of Brexit.
Over the next few weeks, let's say the next 12 weeks or so, the summertime here, May is ending, right. June, July, August. Do you expect the market to trade sideways or move higher?
We expect the market to gradually move higher in anticipation of better corporate earnings in the second half. Comparisons are going to be much easier. You don't have the dollar strength as a headwind that you did last year. You don't have super low oil as a headwind. Those were the two major impediments to S&P 500 earnings. And I think the market is an anticipatory animal, and it's going to start looking ahead toward that. And I think a rise in the Fed funds rate is going to be a vote of confidence in the economic environment being stronger.
Yeah, you kind of took the words right out of my mouth. If they do raise rates, it's a sign that they're more confident about the economy. Has the market kind of come around to that way of thinking rather than being worried about a rate hike as they were just a couple months ago?
Right. Well, and think about 5 months ago, we were worried about global recession led by the U.S. going into recession. How off was that worry? So I think the other thing we need to take the Fed at its word is this is going to be an extraordinarily gradual process. And so I don't think there will be any surprises for the market. And but the next rate hike, I think, will be a vote of confidence in the economic environment that we're in.
Thanks so much for being with us. Hank Smith with Haverford Trust.
Great.
Have a good weekend.
A tentative deal has been reached in one of the largest labor strikes in years. Verizon's nearly 40,000 workers could be back on the job as soon as next week. The Dow component finished up almost 1% and was the top performing stock on the blue chip index today. Mary Thompson is covering the story for us from the New York Stock Exchange.
Well, the largest strike since 2011 could be coming to a close. Labor Secretary Thomas Perez saying that Verizon and almost 40,000 workers have reached an agreement in principle on a 4-year contract. In a statement, he has said he expects the workers to be back on the job next week. Verizon said it was pleased with the agreement in principle that will affect over 36,000 of its workers, while a union involved in the strike issued a statement that said striking CWA members have achieved our major goals of improving working families' standards of living, creating good union jobs in our communities, and achieving a first contract for wireless retail store workers. Perez said the contract is in the process of being written, and then it will go to union members to be ratified. Now, workers in Verizon's wireline unit went on strike on April 13th. They had been working without a contract since August, as the two sides were at odds on issues including pension benefits as well as the outsourcing of call center jobs. Effects of the strike could be felt in the upcoming May jobs report. It depends on how many temporary workers Verizon hired to offset the workers that were on strike. And then, of course, the impact will also be felt when Verizon reports its second quarter results in July, as it is expected to have a negative impact on the telecommunications giant's bottom line. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Mary Thompson at the New York Stock Exchange.
In Japan, the group of 7 leaders wrapped up their meeting and pledged to address some of the challenges facing the global economy, calling it an urgent priority. Following the summit, President Obama and Japan's Prime Minister Abe visited Hiroshima, marking the first visit by a sitting U.S. president to one of the 2 cities hit by atomic bombs at the end of World War II.
Among those nations like my own that hold nuclear stockpiles, we must have the courage to escape the logic of fear and pursue a world without them.
President Obama did not apologize for the U.S. action in World War II, nor was he expected to.
North Korea has been linked to the recent string of hack attacks on Asian banks. According to Symantec, the attacks can be traced as far back as October of last year. Eamon Javers joins us with more. Good to see you, Eamon. This report connects the North Koreans to the $81 million stolen from Bangladesh's central bank that we've been reporting on, that you have been specifically. Do we know that for sure?
We don't quite know that for sure, despite what's in the report that you just cited. I've been talking to people who are familiar with this ongoing investigation, and what they've told me is that there is an indication that a hacking entity was inside the Bank of Bangladesh's servers, and that entity used certain techniques and tactics that are very similar to the hack on Sony. That hack was attributed ultimately to the North Koreans by the U.S. government, but it's never been clear that the North Koreans actually did the Sony hack themselves. It's always been a possibility out there that they outsourced that hack to a third-party enterprise, some kind of criminal enterprise somewhere else in the world. What we may be seeing here, it's at least possible, is that that third-party enterprise is out there doing other stuff as well. So it's very, very murky, and investigators are trying to figure out now exactly who this is, and it's a classic case of a whodunit.
I assume that none of the money has been recovered, but what else have researchers been able to discover here?
Well, in addition to the fact that there's this interesting signature, they found that there were several different entities inside the Bank of Bangladesh's server. So this is a terrifying prospect for global finance, because it's not just the group that actually stole the money that was in there. Investigators have found that there were several other groups that were in their systems just monitoring all of the activity and watching what was going on, perhaps for intelligence gathering purposes. And they've also now expanded their investigation to up to a dozen other banks. Not clear whether these are central banks or private banks, but a dozen other banks with a focus on banks in Asia. So it may be that this sort of thing is a lot more prevalent than we assumed going in.
Eamon, thank you. Eamon Javers in Washington.
Still ahead, uncharted territory. A relatively new medical field gave 2 siblings something most of us take for granted: our vision. The third part of our Modern Medicine series is coming up.
The largest ever automotive recall just got bigger. 8 automakers today recalled more than 12 million vehicles in the U.S. to replace potentially dangerous airbag inflators made by the Japanese firm Takata. That brings the total number of vehicles recalled to nearly 70 million in the U.S. alone.
The Viacom board members could reportedly be replaced very soon by the controlling shareholder Sumner Redstone, who turned 93 today. According to CNBC, there is a possibility that Redstone could change the composition of the board of directors by calling a meeting of shareholders. And he, of course, is the controlling one. A spokesperson for Redstone said Redstone will act in the best interest of shareholders.
Hitting the road this weekend? Well, if you are, you're likely to stop at a drive-thru to pick up some food. And you won't be alone. There's been a big uptick in sales of meals that you can get fast. Susan Lee reports from a rest stop in Ridgefield, New Jersey.
Let me get a McPick too.
Introducing a hot new deal at McDonald's. Introducing our new 4 for $4.
The fast food deal is bringing in the customers.
Burger King offers more for $4 with 5 for $4.
According to the NDP Group tracking checkout receipts, combo deals help sell 100 million extra meals so far this year, and that's up 20% from 2015.
The key thing and why these combo meals have been so successful is that I think there's still very much a large percentage of the American population that is really driven to quick service restaurants for value. That's a value proposition that works in today's environment.
Fast food promotions are so popular with Americans that now 1 in every 3 visits are to take advantage of them.
That's a great deal if you want to go that route. One thing, everybody's looking for convenience. Everybody's looking for the cheap deal nowadays, save money, something quick.
It tends to be a concern with balancing the cost of it and what it is they're actually putting in their mouths. So that tends to be a different price that you end up paying for it.
And that helped drive sales at McDonald's, which saw a first quarter increase of more than 5%. Meantime, Burger King saw sales jump 4% last month.
We're slowly moving away from that dollar price point. A lot of the things that we've seen are, 2 for $2 and 4 for $4. That ultimately, raises the average check size, and so I think that you can start to see these meals prolong or proliferate over a longer period of time. I expect to see them out there for some time.
And it's not just fast food restaurants noticing this bundling trend. Starbucks is now offering an $8 power lunch that includes a sandwich, salad, and chips. TGIF has debuted a drink and dine offering, and that includes an entree and drink for $12. And with the Memorial Day holiday well underway, you can expect that these deals might bring in a few extra folks as they hit the roads. In Ridgefield, New Jersey, I'm Susan Lee for Nightly Business Report.
And here's a look at the performance of some fast food stocks over the past year. The fastest moving has been McDonald's. Best with a 25% gain. Yum Brands, which owns Taco Bell and KFC, worst with a decline of 10%.
Our market monitor tonight is a classic stock picker who's finding opportunity in names that he says should be in your portfolio. It's his first market monitor appearance on the program, although we have had him to talk about the markets on before. John Buckingham joins us, Chief Investment Officer at Al Frank Asset Management. Good to see you again, John. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So given where we see the market, I guess the question is why value? And I know you like dividends.
Right. Well, it's interesting, where interest rates are, I think that dividends are extremely attractive. And I know people are worried about the Fed raising rates. But if you look at market history, the 17 previous Fed liftoffs we've had, value stocks and dividend-paying stocks have actually done really well. Value stocks averaging 14% a year over the following 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, and 5 years. So I think it's a mistake to fear the Fed, especially when the rates would rise because the economy is improving. And of course, the economy improving helps corporate profits.
And higher rates, many people believe, will help financial stocks. And one of your first choices is BB&T Corp, a financial and one of the best run of the bunch.
Right. I really think it's a quality name. They've been making acquisitions, during the nuclear winter, if you will, over the last 6-7 years in the banking space. Here you get a dividend yield at 3.6% or so, or 3.2%, and you have a PE around 13. So I think it's a classic value name, but a quality name that's really made great acquisitions in my mind, and is conservatively run, believe it or not.
Next on the list, Total SA, one of the world's largest integrated oil and gas companies.
Right. Well, same story as far as valuation goes. The interesting thing about Total is they have a lot of their capital expenditures are behind them. They had a significant spend for 6-7 years, and now that spend has been reduced. And here again, you have a low valuation, generous dividend yield, net of taxes. The yield's about 4.5%. And I think that's an excellent recipe for success, especially given that the price of oil has rebounded somewhat, and we think that earnings are going to accelerate for this company in 2017 and 2018.
And your third one is one that has been kind of in a lot of investors' doghouses over the last 15 years, but increasingly seems to be performing: Cisco.
Right. Well, as a value investor, it is interesting that we'd like Cisco, but Cisco today is trading at a forward PE ratio around 12 and a dividend yield of over 3%. And of course, management's very shareholder friendly and buying back stock and rewarding us with the dividend payouts. And as the global economy rebounds, we think that Cisco's poised to see earnings start to reaccelerate in terms of growth. And so the fascinating thing is, back in 2000, Cisco was trading at a ridiculous PE, and even though the stock's gone nowhere all these years, today is the time to buy it because now it's a value stock.
Thank you, John. John Buckingham with Al Frank Asset Management.
Big Lots lifts its earnings outlook for the year, and that is where we begin tonight's market focus. The discount retailer saw a profit rise 20% for the quarter, with the results easily topping estimates. Revenue and comparable store sales also increased and were better than expected. In addition, the company also announced a quarterly cash dividend of 21 cents a share. That's nice. Shares of Big Lots up 14% on the day to $50.95. GameStop saw its shares fall after it issued weaker than expected guidance after the bell yesterday. Despite the downbeat outlook, the video game retailer did manage to top earnings estimates and reported sales that were in line with target. Shares down today nearly 4%, $28.80.
Thermo Fisher Scientific, which makes laboratory equipment, will acquire a microscope technology company, FEI, in a cash deal valued at more than $4 billion. Thermo Fisher says the merger will immediately bolster its earnings. The transaction is expected to be finalized by early next year. Shares of Thermo Fisher Scientific up fractionally to $152.13, while FEI shares soared on the news, over 14% higher to $108.13. Strong demand for beauty products drove profit and sales higher at Ulta Salon Cosmetics and Fragrance. The results topped the company's forecast and analyst estimates. Ulta also lifted its sales outlook for the year. Shares surged 9% to $233.15.
Imagine being told that your two young children would one day go blind and there was basically little that could be done. That is the story of one family. But thanks to some truly amazing genetic therapies, the two children who got such a diagnosis can literally see a bright future. Meg Terrell has the third part of our series, Modern Medicine.
Let me see that.
Caroline and Cole Carper have been through more than your typical siblings.
I can't imagine it being any different than the two of them being together and going through this together. They've had canes together, they've had to learn Braille together. They've gone to school for the blind and visually impaired together.
Early in their lives, they were both diagnosed with a rare genetic retinal disease called LCA, or Leber congenital amaurosis.
The doctor really said, there's no medical treatments at this time.
Both Caroline and Cole were expected eventually to go blind, but their parents found an experimental treatment. And 2 years ago, the kids enrolled together in a clinical trial. It was with Spark Therapeutics, a young biotech company formed out of research from the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia.
The idea is that we are taking a correct functional copy of a gene and adding it back into the cells that have a dysfunctional or missing copy of that gene or blueprint.
It's called gene therapy, and it's relatively uncharted territory in medicine. The technology uses a modified virus to deliver a healthy copy of a gene to make up for one that causes disease. Scientists have been working on it for decades, but only now are the first gene therapies approaching the market. Sparks is among the most advanced. The healthy genes are delivered through eye surgery. Once they're in place, they're designed to do the work of a normally functioning gene, meaning patients only undergo treatment once.
What we're doing is different. We're actually adding the blueprint in, and the cell then knows how to do the last step, which is to make the protein or the enzyme that might be missing, and therefore that is what creates the potential for it to be a long-lasting effect.
In trials of 41 patients, the therapy is shown to improve both vision and light sensitivity with no major side effects. Caroline and Cole were no exception. Before their surgeries, both kids had trouble seeing in low light. Now, though their vision's not perfect, they say they're noticing big differences.
Good things are to come. I went outside when it was snowing, and I was like, oh, I can see the snowflakes. It was really cool, like, to actually see something that I'd never seen in my life before.
Spark is one of several companies developing gene therapies, targeting everything from hemophilia to sickle cell disease to other rare disorders. If they're successful, it will be a new paradigm for medicine, fighting genetic disease in just one treatment.
I thought it was really cool how simple it was and how much it changed my life.
For Nightly Business Report, I'm Meg Terrell.
To read more about gene therapy and the Carpers story, head to our website, nbr.com.
Coming up, turning up the heat, the entrepreneur who followed his gut, literally, and watched his business grow and grow. You'll meet him in tonight's How I Made My Millions. Here's a look at what to watch for next week. On Monday, the markets are closed for the Memorial Day weekend, but we'll have a special holiday edition of NBR. On Wednesday, the big automakers release their sales numbers for May, and Friday we get the economic release of the week, May's employment report. And that is what to watch for coming up next week.
Well, tonight we meet an entrepreneur who has won 18 prestigious food awards for items like oatmeal cookie butter, masala marinara, and hot mustard. But he's perhaps best known for turning up the heat on hot sauce. He's like a money-making mad scientist in the chili pepper world. Here's tonight's How I Made My Millions.
Dave Hirschkopf might act crazy, but it's just one of the wacky ways he promotes his insanely hot.
Wow, I can tell this is gonna be hot. That's more than enough.
Hot sauces.
That was a little hot. All right. Yeah.
So we made this sauce, and they were like, that's insane. That's crazy. You gotta be nuts to make that or eat it. If you don't swallow it, it never gets bad. Yeah.
From this blistering base, he's built an award-winning, multi-million-dollar specialty food brand, Dave's Gourmet.
That's warm. I'm so glad it happened. I feel very lucky.
His luck began in the early 1990s when he decided, quite literally, to follow his gut.
And California had a lot of taquerias, and the East Coast really didn't.
So, with the help of $35,000 from family and friends, he opened a place called Burrito Madness in College Park, Maryland. Dave's biggest complaint?
We had a lot of drunks coming into the taqueria.
To teach them a lesson, Dave started spiking their food with homemade hot sauce.
Chilies are great because you can hurt somebody without injuring them.
Whoa!
So it hurts, and then 20 minutes later, they're happy as a clam and laughing about the experience.
He found success in extracts made from the inside of the pepper.
It was just amazing because then you could make the sauce taste all sorts of ways and with superheat, and it was just sort of it was like a different paradigm for making hot sauce.
Next, he spent about $5,000 on bottling, airfare, and a straitjacket, and went blazing into the 1993 National Fiery Food Show with his first extract-based product, Insanity Sauce.
The heat was so much greater than what they had already experienced that people were like floored. And a couple people were literally floored. The promoter of the show banned us, which in the end became a good thing, and we got a lot of publicity out of it.
Ever heard of Dave's Insanity Sauce? Yeah. You're Dave? Yeah. Hey. Nice.
People sought us out. I mean, we'd have stores selling, 50 cases a week of sauce, which is mind-blowing.
It was enough to make Dave sell the restaurant and move to California, but not enough to quit his day job.
I did the hot sauce as a hobby on the side, but it just got to be too big.
In less than a year, he'd hired a small staff and was selling sauces full-time. Sales spiked the first 4 years, reaching roughly $2 million in revenue in 1996, then slowed to a simmer. So in 2001, he started pumping out premium pasta sauces under the Dave's Gourmet label. And by 2009, the company was increasing sales and winning awards.
There are several reasons why we sort of diversified a little bit over time, and we just get bored. We like to do new and innovative. That's our DNA. What do you think?
I think if the tagginess came down a bit, then it would be a lot better.
All this tinkering has annual sales fired up to about $7 million, and Hirschkopf says he's got even more heat up his straitjacketed sleeves.
The big hot sauce companies, they could buy us between lunch and dinner, but I think what we're doing is important still, because we're stretching the limit. Cheers.
Some like it hot. Dave's Gourmet products are carried by Target, Safeway, Whole Foods, many regional chains, and true to his word, he has two new innovations coming out soon, a line of creamy hot sauces and overnight oats. I wouldn't suggest that you eat them together, Sue,
No,
the hot sauce. Are you a big hot food fan?
I like spicy food, but not so spicy that you
you're
can't taste
sweating
the food.
profusely.
Exactly.
All right.
That does it for us tonight. I'm Sue Herrera. Thanks for joining us.
Have a great weekend, everybody. I'm Tyler Mathisen. We'll see you here on Monday, special edition of NBR.